Hello footy fans, welcome to another episode of Bev's Footy Show for 2017. This episode is for after round 16. Let's get straight into having a look at the episode agenda for this week's episode. I'm going to start off the show by having a look back at the round 16 results. It was a very interesting and exciting round of footy, so looking forward to having a look at those results. I'll then have a look at the AFL Ladder after round 16, and then going to get into the stats wrap up. Who's leading what in terms of the disposals, goals, marks and tackles after round 16. The 5 talking points of the week to come also, and then to finish off the show is the round 17 matches and my tips. So that is the episode agenda for this week's episode. Let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into having a look at the results from round 16. So as I mentioned, round 16 was another interesting and exciting round of footy, just like every round has been this season. The 2017 AFL season has just been extraordinary, and well, let's get straight in now to having a look at the round 16 results. It all started on Friday night between the Adelaide Crows and the Western Bulldogs at the Adelaide Oval. The Western Bulldogs really took it up to the Crows in the first half. They only trailed by 3 points at half-time, but the second half was quite woeful by them, and the Adelaide Crows will be very happy with the win, considering their last month and a half probably hasn't been as good as how they started off the season, but a good win for them, and we'll be seeing very shortly where they are on the ladder, because they are in a very, very good spot. The final score was the Adelaide Crows 16-8, 104, defeated the Western Bulldogs 5-15, 45 in front of 41,948 at the Adelaide Oval. 5 games on Saturday, all started with a draw on the first Saturday afternoon game. Yes, another draw, second straight draw, and GWS were involved. The final score being Hawthorn 14-13, 97, drew with the GWS Giants 15-7, 97 in front of 12,156 at UTAS Stadium. This was the first time since Colton in rounds 4 and 5 in 1921 that a VFL AFL team has drawn in 2 consecutive matches. So this is basically the first time ever under the new AFL name. It's happened under the VFL name, but not under the AFL name. So this is basically the first time it's happened where a team has got a draw in a matter of 2 straight weeks. So unbelievable scenes there at UTAS Stadium on Saturday afternoon, and well, the Giants will be absolutely devastated with that. It was a very good game. The other Saturday afternoon game was at the MCG between Collingwood and Essendon, traditional Anzac Day teams who play on Anzac Day and obviously carry out that tradition each and every year, but this wasn't on Anzac Day. But there was still a very good crowd there to see Essendon win this match pretty convincingly. The final score, Collingwood 12-8, 80, defeated by Essendon 18-9, 117 in front of 63,537 at the MCG. The Saturday twilight game, it was a pretty dominant display by the Swans. The Gold Coast Suns were probably in it early, but no, the Swans got a very, very good win. The final score being 17-16, 118, defeated Gold Coast 7-9, 51 in front of 32,987 at the SCG. 2 Saturday night games, very interesting Saturday night games. The first one being at the Gabba between the Brisbane Lions and Geelong, and the Cats were far too strong for the Lions. The final score being Brisbane Lions 11-12, 78, defeated by the Cats 25-13, 163 in front of 18,769 at the Gabba. The other Saturday night game was Maddie's match and St Kilda came out and, well, just brushed off Richmond early. They had a really big half-time lead. They were in front by about 80-odd points, and yeah, couldn't believe what I saw on Saturday night. Richmond were favourites to win this game, and if St Kilda were going to win, it would have been an upset, but to win by the margin they did and do what they did in the first half was just extraordinary. The final score, St Kilda 21-12, 138. Defeated Richmond 10-11-71 in front of 47,514 at Etihad. And then to finish off the round, there were 3 Sunday games. The first one at 1:10 p.m, the early Sunday afternoon game between North Melbourne and Fremantle. Goldstein missed a sitter, and Fremantle won the game. The final score being North Melbourne 12-10-82, defeated by Fremantle 13-8-86 in front of just over 19,000 at Etihad. The mid-Sunday afternoon game was at the MCG. It was an absolute belter between Carlton and Melbourne. Melbourne in the end winning by 8 points. The final score being Carlton 12-10-82, defeated by Melbourne 14-6-90. Was a really, really good game. Really enjoyed that game. And then the final game was an upset. Port Adelaide were able to put on a really good display in the last quarter and beat the Eagles in Perth. You might remember earlier in the year, Port Adelaide and West Coast Eagles met at Adelaide Oval, and West Coast Eagles won that game. Well, Port Adelaide get a bit of redemption here away from home against the Eagles, beating them at Domain Stadium, the Eagles' home ground. The final score being the Eagles 13-10-88, defeated by Port Adelaide 18-12, 120 in front of 36,766 at Domain Stadium. Really good win there by Port Adelaide. It was a really needed win from them. So there you go, that's the round 16 results. Let's have a look now at how those results have affected the AFL ladder. Okay, so let's have a look now at the AFL ladder, how it stands after round 16. The Crows are on top of the table after that win against the Western Bulldogs. They've taken the GWS Giants spot, taken back the top spot, and they are there on 44 points, joint with the GWS Giants, but they have a better percentage, the Crows, than the Giants. Of course, the Crows have won 11 and lost 4 in 2017. The Giants on second. The reason for that is because they've drawn 2 matches, lost 3 and won 10, as I mentioned, on the same points as the Crows, but the Crows have a better percentage. Geelong are third, just 2 points behind the Giants. Port Adelaide fourth and in the top 4. That is really, really amazing and quite good from a Port Adelaide point of view. And it's pretty good considering that they were classed as pretenders last week or the week before. Definitely last week after that Richmond game, they were classed as pretenders because they couldn't beat a top 8 side. But they've actually had a couple of really good wins in season 2017. And, well, they sit in 4th position on 9 wins and 6 losses. They have a better percentage than Melbourne, who are on 5th, and Richmond, who are on 6th, and Kilda are 7th. Also have the worst percentage out of Port Adelaide, Melbourne, and Richmond. 8th is the Sydney Swans. They are really lethal at the moment and could no doubt win the flag from where they are. It's no question about that. 9th is the West Coast Eagles. They've fallen outside the top 8 now after that loss to Port Adelaide. A crucial game coming up for them on Sunday against Fremantle. Essendon are 10th. The Western Bulldogs have dropped all the way down to 11th, and their finals hopes are in tatters at the moment. Fremantle 12th, Hawthorn 13th, the Gold Coast Suns 14th, Collingwood 15th, Carlton 16th, North Melbourne 17th, and then the Brisbane Lions are in the wooden spoon position on 18th. So that is the ladder after round 16. Okay, time now for the stats wrap up after round 16. Who's leading the disposals, goal kickers, marks and tackles? Let's get straight on to having a look at the leading disposals to start off with. Tom Mitchell leads, no surprise there from Hawthorn. He is on 535 disposals. Matt Crouch from the Crows a little bit far behind, but not too far, but a really reasonable gap there between Tom Mitchell and Matt Crouch. Matt Crouch on 479 disposals. Third is Patrick Dangerfield, the Brownlow medalist of last year, on 474. Fourth is Andrew Gaff from the West Coast Eagles on 469 disposals. And then fifth is Rory Lard on 466 disposals. We then have the goal kickers. Lance Franklin Tops the leading goal kickers on 43. Jeremy Cameron second with 41. Joe Danaher third, also on 41 goals. Eddie Betts fourth with 39. And then Ben Brown from North Melbourne breaks into the top 5 of the leading goal kickers. He sits on 38 goals. The marks, Sam Doherty leads the marks on 148. Jeremy Howe second with 123 marks. Jeremy McGovern is third with 116 marks. Fourth is Cade Simpson with 114 marks. And then fifth is Jeremy Cameron from the Giants on 113 marks. And then finally the tackles, Rory Sloane leads with 122 tackles. Second is the gun himself, Dane Zorko. How good is this player at the moment? He is just an absolute legend and a gun. He's playing some really good footy at the moment for the Lions. He's second on 116 tackles. You then have Brad Ebert third with 115 tackles. Tom Mitchell fourth with 106 tackles. And fifth is Marcus Bonampelli from the Western Bulldogs with 105 tackles. So that is the stats wrap-up for after round 16. Okay, time now for the 5 talking points of the week. Let's get straight into talking point number 1. And, well, Brad Scott, new coach of Collingwood. There's been a few rumours of late, or I guess discussion, that Brad Scott is the right man for Collingwood next year if Nathan Buckley was to be sacked and so forth. Of course, we know that Brad Scott is the current coach of North Melbourne. I believe that he's actually contracted until the end of next year. In fact, if Nathan Buckley was to be sacked, I actually don't think that Brad Scott is the right man for the job. You know, he's a current AFL coach who's at a current AFL club, and I know it's happened before with Ross Lyon, of course, who left St Kilda to take Mark Harvey's job as the Fremantle coach. But if Collingwood were to sack Nathan Buckley, I just don't think Brad Scott would be the right man for the job. They should go after someone like I think Michael Voss, who I thought was actually not too bad of a coach for the Brisbane Lions, and then I think Brett Ratton's been named a little bit, and then there's obviously the apprentice coaches, the Brendan Bolton types. There's a few that's been named as a possible chance. So maybe they should go for someone like a Brendan Bolton type or a Luke Beveridge type. It just depends on if they're ready to actually concede and say, okay, we don't have the team for finals. Let's rebuild essentially, or generate our list for the next couple of years. But I don't think Brad Scott is the great match for them. Paul Roos, he might be okay for a short term, but not a long term. I don't even know what. I think it's a ridiculous rumour, to be honest. I think Brad Scott is the current coach of North Melbourne. I don't even think they actually have set their interest, North Melbourne, in getting rid of him. So, but anyway, my opinion on that is that I don't think Brad Scott will be the coach of Collingwood next year. If Nathan Buckley wasn't to be the coach, I think it'd be, someone who, has already coached an AFL club before, or who is yet to coach an AFL club. Talking point number 2 is the Western Bulldogs finals chances, top 8 chances, and look, I'm at the stage now where I think they won't make the top 8 in 2017. I have a bit of faith, and I hope that they prove me wrong, but they're not playing the footy that is going to get them into the top 8. They're not playing that brand of footy we saw last year that got them to where they got to last year. That's not to say they can't turn it around this week and start winning games and get through to the top 8. But you can't go through their fixture. No one can go through their fixture right now and say that they are going to win the games that they've got remaining. They've got Colton this week, which is going to be a task, I reckon. They've then got the Gold Coast Suns at Kazali. That could be a 50-50, who knows, although you do expect them to beat the Suns, because you do expect they are a better side than the Suns. Essendon and Etihad's going to be a tough one. Brisbane Lions at the Gabba, you can't be so sure they're going to go into state and win, considering that they haven't won into state yet this season. Then they've got the Giants at home, Port Adelaide at Eureka Stadium, and then Hawthorn at Etihad in the last game. So, look, they could no doubt win those remaining games, but you can't really be sure, if you know what I mean. So, look, I don't think they'll make the top 8. I think they'll just miss out. I think they'll finish 9th or 10th or 11th where they are around about now. And that's not to say that they can't come back next year and make the finals. They still have a great team, a great squad, but they're just not playing a game style that's going to actually enter them inside the top 8. I'm a Western Bulldogs supporter, and I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they do make the top 8 this year, but it's in doubt at the moment. And you know, Beveridge's press conference was very interesting after the game on Friday night. I hope that his words will make the team come out and really make a statement on Sunday. I hope that happens. In fact, I'm kind of predicting that and hoping and actually expecting that they come out and make a statement against Carlton on Sunday at the G venue where they won the grand final last year. Next talking point number 3 is Port Adelaide's win in Perth. How good was that win on Sunday against the Eagles? Like I mentioned before, a bit of redemption after they lost at Adelaide Oval to the Eagles earlier in the year. To go over and beat the Eagles at Domain Stadium on Sunday, I did not expect that. I did not see that coming. I had kind of lost a little bit of faith in them last week, but they've kind of regenerated that faith for me a little bit, because they're now sitting in the top 4, and I think they are a genuine chance to go pretty far in 2017. They've had some good wins this year. They beat the Swans earlier in the year. You could probably argue that that was probably when the Swans weren't in the greatest form they've ever been. They were in a bit of a slump. Of course, it was the first round of the season, but nonetheless, it was away from home at the SCG, and then they've beaten the Eagles away from home as well. So, you know, that loss last week against Richmond wasn't the greatest, but you know, I think this win will spark, you know, will spark something for them now, because they've got some winnable games coming up. They've got North Melbourne next week, and then they've got Melbourne at the MCG, which won't be easy, but I actually believe they could probably go over and beat the D's. And then they've got St Kilda at home, and then Adelaide Crows at home. That's going to be a very interesting game, probably their toughest out of their remaining games. Then they've got Collingwood, the Dogs, and the Gold Coast Suns. So they have a pretty interesting and relatively good run home, and it could see them book a top 4 place. At the moment, they're sitting on the ladder, and they look like a team that we might not expect to go all the way this year, but might just do so. Who knows? Talking point number 4, how far can St Kilda go in 2017? How good was that win on Saturday night? I did not expect them to do what they did on Saturday night. I expected Richmond to win in a close contest, but St Kilda just came out and knocked Richmond off the block early. They had the game sewed up and won at half time. It was unbelievable. Richmond had only kicked 1 goal. They had kicked so many, and I didn't expect that. And that has to raise the question now. If they could do that to Richmond on a Saturday night at Etihad, they could end up going pretty far in season 2017. I'm not so convinced just yet, though. Because there is 7th place, and you only have to slot into the top 8 to have an actual chance of winning the premiership. But I'm not so convinced yet, even though we saw a really good, ferocious brand of footy from them on Saturday night against Richmond. It was at Etihad, and I don't think they've been so convincing away from home, although that win against Fremantle at Domain Stadium was a real ripper. So I think we're going to learn a lot about them in the next few games. I think, you know, we know that they are capable when they're at their best. But they've got some very interesting games coming up. They've got Essendon on Friday night, which I think will be a game that they'll be expected to win and should win, but it's going to be a close battle nonetheless. The City Swans one at the SCG is an interesting one for me, and that will test them a little bit. Port Adelaide away from home at the Adelaide Oval will be a testy one as well. And then the West Coast Eagles at Etihad, you probably think they could win that, being at Etihad. They should win all their remaining Etihad games, I reckon. Melbourne at the MCG, that will be a real ripper, that one, and then North Melbourne at Etihad and Richmond at the MCG. So they've got some testy games coming up in their remaining games towards the finals, and they're not sewed up into the top 8 just yet. They've still got a lot of work to do, but at the moment they look really good, and they look like a side that could do what the Western Bulldogs did last year, slot into 6th, 7th, 8th, and then win the flag from an outside position. Final talking point is one that has just emerged just in the last kind of 7 or 8 hours, I suppose, and that is the round 23 Geelong v GWS match to be played on a Monday night. Now Geelong have basically called out to the AFL and said that they would like their round 23 match against the GWS Giants at Simmons Stadium to be played on Monday night. And I think some of the idea surrounding this is the fact that they're not so poor after the bye, and we know that they have a poor record after the bye. But I'm not a big fan of this. I don't want to see this game on a Monday night. Round 23 is one of those rounds, well, in recent years anyway, especially last year when the top 8 was sowed and hosed, and it might be different this year. It might be that we don't have an exact top 8 until after the games of round 23, if you know what I mean. But round 23 is one of those rounds in previous years for me where you want it to be done. You want it to be over with and done with, so you can get on to the finals. That's just how I feel anyway at times. I don't want this match to be on a Monday night. I'm not a big fan of Monday night footy. I'd rather Thursday night footy. So I don't think it's a very good play by Geelong, and I don't know if they would get a big crowd there. I'm not quite sure if they would. They probably would, considering it's down in Geelong, but nah, look, Monday night footy, I think that's pretty much dead and buried. We only saw the one Monday night footy game this year, which was Richmond and Melbourne, the Anzac Day Eve clash. But beside that, nah, Monday night footy done. I don't like Monday night footy too much. Okay, time now to get into the round 17 matches and also my tips to go with it. Let's start with the round 17 opener on Friday night. This should be a ripping game on Friday the 14th of July. It's St Kilda and Essendon at Etihad Stadium starting at 7:50pm. You can watch it on 7 and Fox Footy. I'd be expecting this to be a close game, although what St Kilda did last week, you can't be so sure. They could blow Essendon out in the first half, just like they did to Richmond in round 16. I'm tipping St Kilda. I think they'll be far too strong for the Bombers, and they really should win this, considering what they did last week. If they lose, I think that's a big back step for them. So St Kilda is my tip for the round 17 opener on Friday night. Saturday there's 5 games. Real interest in all of these games. The first one being at the MCG between traditional rivals, Geelong and Hawthorn. This game starting at 1:45pm, and you can watch it on Fox Footy. I'm tipping Geelong. Hawthorn have played some good footy over the last, I guess, couple of weeks, and I'd be expecting this game to be a lot closer than the Easter Monday clash we saw against these two earlier in the year, but I think Geelong will be just a tad too strong. The other Saturday afternoon game is at 1:40pm local time, 2:10pm Eastern, Port Adelaide North Melbourne at the Adelaide Oval. You can watch this game on Fox Sports 3. I think Port Adelaide will be far too strong at their home ground against North Melbourne, who narrowly lost to Fremantle in round 16. The Saturday twilight game, very interesting game between the Gold Coast Suns and Collingwood, 4:35pm at Metricon Stadium. You can watch this game on Fox Footy, and both teams poor last week. It's no question about that. Both teams have coaches that are under the pump, and we might not even see in the competition next year. I think Collingwood are a better side than the Gold Coast Suns, and even though the Suns play some good footy at home, I'm actually going to tip Collingwood. I think they've won the last couple against the Gold Coast Suns, one being at Metricon Stadium. So I'm going to tip Collingwood. I think they'll win this game. They'll bounce back after their last couple of weeks. And 2 Saturday night games, very interesting Saturday night games, 2 blockbusters to be fair. The first one 7:25pm at Spotless Stadium between Sydney rivals GWS and the Swans. This game on Fox Sports 3. I reckon I'll be watching this one and not the other one, because this is going to be a ripper, and I'm going to tip the Swans. I think they're hard to tip against at the moment. They're in ferocious and really good form after their slump at the start of the year. Their 0-6 form, of course. They're in the top 8 at the moment, and I think they'll win this game. It should be a good one, though. I'm expecting it to be close all night. The other Saturday night game is at TIO Stadium in Darwin between Melbourne and the Adelaide Crows. This one at 7:10pm local, 7:40pm Eastern. I'm going to tip the Crows. I think they'll just be a little bit too strong against Melbourne, but it should be a good game. You can watch it on 7 and Fox Footy. And then 3 Sunday games. The first one, the early game, 1:10 p.m. between Richmond and the Brisbane Lions at Etihad Stadium. You can watch it on Fox Footy. I think Richmond will win, but the Brisbane Lions got a good win at Etihad a couple of weeks ago against Essendon, so I wouldn't ride them off. It could be a good game, and it could be a game that they might stay in. They might stay in the hunt all game, and who knows, they might take the win. But you'd be expecting Richmond to win this game after that loss to St Kilda. The mid-Sunday afternoon game, 3:20 p.m. is at the MCG between Carlton and the Western Bulldogs. You can watch it on 7 and Fox Sports 3. Should be a good game. I think it'll be close all afternoon, but the Western Bulldogs, I think, will get the job done and bounce back after last week, and really their weeks since the bye. They've only won 1 out of their last 5 games, so that's not really good enough from a Dogs' point of view. And then the final game on Sunday, final game of round 17, it is the WA Derby. It is going to be a ripper. It is at 2:40 p.m. local, 4:40 p.m. Eastern. Fremantle and the West Coast Eagles at Domain Stadium. You can watch it on Fox Footy. I'm tipping the West Coast Eagles to bounce back. But it could be a good game, this one. Fremantle have played some good footy at times, especially in the last couple of weeks. So that is the matches and my tips for round 17. And that is it for this week's episode of Bev's Footy Show. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to like, comment, share this video if you did enjoy it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with an episode of this every single week. And also to keep up to date with all my other content as well here on Bevob5 Productions. So until next week, enjoy round 17. Really cannot wait for this weekend's round. It's going to be a beauty, some great games. Till next week, bye for now.